Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf, which is Pesachim Daf Ches. We're on the last line of Zayin Amud Beis. It says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, Ein Boitkin Loi Lo'ir HaChama. One is not meant to do B'dikas Chametz using sunlight, V'loi Lo'ir Levana, nor using the light of the moon, V'loi Lo'ir Avuka, nor using a torch, Ella Lo'ir Haner, rather by candlelight. Why? V'pnei she'oir haner Yafal B'dika, because candlelight is superior. It's preferred for B'dikas Chametz, as the Gemara soon will explain. Although there's no absolute right that a candle is meant to be used for B'dikas Chametz, Zeichel Davar, we do have an indication, and these are the 4 psukim we learned yesterday. Shenemar Shivas Yamim S'or Lo Yimatzu V'Teichem. So we find the term Metzia, finding, in connection with Chametz. V'Omer V'Yechapes B'Gadol Heichel, and the pasuk there has the word V'Yimatze. So you see that V'Yechapes, searching, is synonymous with Metzia, with finding. So likewise by Chametz, where the word Lo Yimatze is used, it's synonymous with searching. And we move on to the next pasuk, V'Omer B'isahi Achapes Es Yishlayim B'Neros. So we find that Chipus is done using candles. And finally V'Omer Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam Chayfes Kol Chadri Boten. So we find that a ner is meant to be used for searching purposes, and likewise for B'dikas Chametz. So here we have the symbolic element of ner. Now then we'll proceed with a practical element, why a ner is more suitable. So let's go back to the Braisa. We're not meant to use Oir HaChama, sunlight. Hi Oir HaChama Hechidami. What are we speaking about? Ineme B'Chatzer. If he's going to search for the chametz out in the courtyard using the Oir HaChama, well, Ha'amar Rava, didn't Rava tell us, Chatzer Eina Tzricha B'dika? This outdoor area, this Chatzer, requires no B'dika to begin with. Because there are ravens present there which will remove the chametz regardless. So, at any rate, no B'dika is required out in the Chatzer, Ela B'Chsadr. Apparently we're speaking about a roofed area, a terrace. So it has a roof, but it has an incomplete enclosure, in which case there are no ravens there, but it's exposed, it's properly exposed to sunlight. And the Braisa tells us we're not meant to do B'dikas Chametz merely using natural light. Really? Ha'amar Rava. Didn't Rava say Achsadra Lo'ir Nivdekes? Certainly you can. You can check the Achsadra using its natural light. You don't need any additional candles. Loitzricha apparently was speaking about Laruba de B'cheder, regarding a skylight present in a room. So it's indoors and there's a skylight. And you'd like to check that room using merely sunlight. Says Modehecha, where are you trying to check? Ila Bahadi Aruba. Opposite that window, Hainu Achsadra. That's tantamount to Achsadra. Why can't you do that? There's sufficient sunlight coming through that window, which allows for proper searching. Apparently we're speaking about checking the sides of the room, meaning not opposite the skylight. So those areas are a bit dim, in which case you have to bring an additional tool, which is a candle. Let's see Rashi inside, from the top of the Amud. In what way is a ner superior to a torch? And then we're proceeded that we're not meant to use the Oir HaChama, sunlight. And the word said, well, the Achsadra, Lo'ir Nivdekes, Lo'ir Shal Nivdekes. You can use merely its natural light. Don't need to wait till nighttime to use a candle. You just do B'dikas Chametz during the day, meaning during the 13th day of Nisan. So when I said, well, speaking about a skylight, Udahecha, Be'ezah Mokem B'cheder, in which location are we speaking about? Where in this cheder? Do we say that the light coming through the aruba is not sufficient? Opposite that window, why not? This is the same as the achsadra. There's abundance of natural light, that should suffice. Let's start in Shulchar, we're speaking about on the sides, so off to the sides a bit dim, in which case the sunlight doesn't suffice. That's why you need to use a candle. But only a candle, not an avuka. So avuka was a combined entity of several wicks braided together, and that can't be used. Why not, says the Gemara? Avuka, oi? It would seem that an avuka provides more illumination than merely just one wick, one candle. V'amar Rava, mai dichsiv. What does the pasuk mean? V'noiga ka'ertia. The tzaddikim, l'asalav, will experience their noiga, their light will be like the oyer. Which oyer? That was present during the days of creation. The Medrash tells us Hashem hid that light, that intense illumination, and He saved it for the tzaddikim l'asalav. So indeed, they will experience it l'asalav, karnayim yadiloi. Hashem will hand them over the rays. V'sham chevin uzoi. However, at the end of the day, the true intensity, the true intense illumination will be present where? By Hashem. Lama tzaddikim doimen b'fnei shchina. How do the tzaddikim compare to the shchina? Kinir b'fnei avuka, like a candle in front of a torch. So it's pretty clear that a torch illuminates more than a candle. V'amar Rava, in fact, Rava tells us, avuka la'avdala mitzvah min ha'muvchar. It is a superior, preferred mitzvah to use an avuka when it comes to avdala. So it's pretty clear that a torch provides greater illumination than just a candle. Now, Teres Chaim asks, isn't this common knowledge? Why does the Gemara have to bring a raya that a torch gives off more light than a candle? So he says, perhaps, okay, quantitatively, yeah, a torch is bigger and provides more, but perhaps, as far as quality is concerned, a candle which is surrounded by an abundance of wax, which supply it a steady supply, perhaps qualitatively a candle is better than a torch, which is a combination of many small, many thin candles. So perhaps a candle has that advantage, and that's why we learn from these sources, no, it seems that in all respects, a torch is superior to a candle. So why is a candle preferred by b'dikas chametz? The Gemara will respond with 4 reasons. A candle, one doesn't hesitate to bring it into the nooks and crannies to provide a proper check. However, the torch, you can't bring it to the nooks and crannies. So therefore, it doesn't provide for a proper b'dikas chametz. Rav Zid Amar, the light of a candle is in front of it. It illuminates in front of itself. So if you hold out the candle to illuminate your nook and your cranny, your closet, the candle will provide proper illumination and you'll be able to discover the chametz there. In contrast to a torch, whose light is behind them. What does that mean? Due to the intense light emanating from the torch, it will blind the person and actually impede his vision. Won't be able to see properly beyond the torch that he's holding out. So the area in front of the torch will be blocked from his vision, and he won't be able to see properly. So only behind it, meaning between the torch and himself, he can see properly, but beyond the torch, that area he's blinded, and he won't be able to see. Rav Haba Amar, high boys, a torch generates fear due to its large size, and he won't check properly in his home. Violate boys, as opposed to the candle, which doesn't generate fear, and will provide a proper check. Ravina Amar, high mashach nahira. The flame of a candle is steady and consistent. V'hai miktavik tufi, as opposed to the flame of a torch which jumps around and choppy, and therefore a candle is preferred. So in summary, how do we do b'dikas chametz? The chatzar doesn't need a b'dika whatsoever because of the ervin that are present there. An achsadra needs a b'dika, but one may use sunlight. Likewise, opposite the skylight, you can use the aracham. However, off to the sides, you need to use a ner. Why is a ner superior to a torch? 4 reasons. A ner can be brought into small areas, the nooks and crannies. The ner illuminates in front of itself, allows for proper vision. He's not afraid of bringing his candle into his home, into the closets. And finally, the flame of a candle is steady and consistent, as opposed to the flame of the torch. Continues the Gemara. The Mishnah said, Kol makom shemachnisim by chametz. So, anywhere where you don't bring chametz, you don't need to do bedika. Why the word kol? Kol is coming to include something. Kol makom la'asui mai. What are we coming to include? La'asui, hadatan rabbanim come to include the halacha found in the following brayse. Chorei bayis. If you have a room in which you bring chametz, but there are holes in the wall. Hel yoinim b'tachtainim. Holes up above, down below, which are inaccessible, difficult to use. So the ones up above are beyond his reach, the one down below are difficult to use, and presumed to be free of chametz. Therefore, no bedika is required. And this is what the Mishnah had in mind. Kol makom, even this place, as the Tzlach explains, we're speaking about a room in which there is chametz. However, the holes which are inaccessible are deemed to be off limits, presumed to be free of chametz, and a potter from bedikas chametz. The Brisa continues with several additional examples of places which are potter from bedikas chametz. V'gag hayatzia, the roof of a extension coming out of his home. Rashi says it's a slanty roof, so we assume that the chametz rolled off. V'gag hamigdal, the top of a closet. V'refes bakar, a barn, v'lulin, a chicken coop, umatbein, a hay storage room, v'oitzres yain v'oitzres shemen, rooms where you store wine or oil, ain't tzrichem b'dika, because they're presumed to be free of chametz. The refes bakar, etc., where there are animals, we assume that the animals consume the chametz. Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer, mita hachelekes b'seich habayis. This bed, which serves as a partition in that room, umafsekes, and there is a gap between the bed and the floor, tzricha b'dika. You need to check it, because perhaps there's chametz stored beneath that bed. Continues the Gemara. V'raminu, we seem to have a contradiction from a brisa regarding two elements found in the brisa that we just learned. We just learned that holes are exempt from b'dikas chametz. Under the bed, you do need to do bedika. And the coming brisa will indicate otherwise. The brisa says, Chor ben adam l'chaver. If there's a hole present in a wall which separates one person's house from the other, ze baidik ad makom she'ad magas. So Reuven will check in that hole up until where his hand can reach. And likewise Shimon, v'ze baidik ad makom she'ad magas. He'll check until where he can reach. V'ashar, what about the place in between? So he just does bittul, and that's sufficient. Chacham didn't require him to exert himself to that extent. As long as he checks up until the point where his hand can reach, that's okay. So you see that one needs to check a hole in the wall. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, mita chaylekes b'seich habayis. We have this bed which serves as a partition in the room. Me'itzim va'avonim sedurim tachtel. We have some wood, some stones stored underneath the bed. Umafsekes, and there is some gap between the bed and the wood beneath it. Eina tzricha b'dika. A b'dika is not required. So we have a double contradiction. Kasha mita amita. We have a contradiction regarding mita. In the first price that we see underneath amita requires b'dika, as opposed to the second brisa, which doesn't require b'dika. Chayr nachayr, kasha chayr nachayr. We have a kasha regarding holes in the wall as well. In the first brisa, they don't need b'dika. In the second brisa, they do. Says the Gemara, chayr nachayr the kasha. Regarding chayr, the answer is like this. Depends where the holes are situated. Habi ilay ubitatay. The previous brisa was describing holes which are high above, down below, inaccessible, and therefore don't require b'dika. V'habi mitzi. In contrast with the second brisa, which is describing holes which are somewhere in the middle, inaccessible, and therefore there's a chashash, there's chametz there, b'dika is required. Mita mitalei kasha. Regarding mita, the answer will be like this: hadamit laya, hadamit demi tatay. In the second brisa, where no b'dika is required, we're speaking about mitatay. It's low down, and there's not enough space to use the area underneath the bed. Hadamid laya is referring to the first brisa. You know why b'dika is required? Because it's lifted off the ground, and there's adequate space for storage, in which case we're concerned with the presence of chametz. Continues the Gemara. So you mean to say that wine cellars don't need bedikas chametz? We have a brayta which says when it comes to wine storerooms, bedika is required. Stores in which you store the oil, you don't have to have bedika, but wine, yeah. When the brayta says that bedika in a wine cellar is required, we're speaking about b'mistapik. It's not a commercial wine cellar. It's not locked away. Mistapik, it's serving his personal needs, supplying his wine for his meal. In which case we're concerned that perhaps during the meal the servant will get up, run down to get some more wine, and leave his bread in the wine cellar. Says if that's the case, that we're speaking about a personal storage room, so why does the Brisa say that only when it comes to wine bedika is required, but oitzre shemen don't need bedika? We're speaking about a room in which he stores his personal oil, which supplies his meals. Why is there no concern there as well? That perhaps the shamish will get up with his bread, run down to the storeroom, and perhaps inadvertently leave the bread there. Shemen yesh kava la'achila. When it comes to oil, the consumption of oil is predetermined, it's known in advance, and he tends to prepare adequate supply to last him throughout the entire meal. And there's no concern that the oil ran out and the shams will have to go on down to the storeroom during the meal. We assume that he planned in advance and prepared enough oil. However, yayin ein kvar l'shtiya, there's no set amount for drinking wine. Perhaps he anticipated one amount, and the supply got depleted mid-meal, which required him to go down to the wine cellar with his bread, and perhaps left his bread there. Tani Reb Chia, also itzreis sheikha b'bavel. The Chachamim regarded the beer storerooms in Bavel, where they were accustomed to drinking lots of beer, just as they would drink wine in Yisrael. So they regarded those beer storerooms in the same category as the wine storage rooms in Eretz Yisrael, but mistapik. When we're speaking about a beer storage room which supplies his meal needs. Therefore, the same concern that applies in the personal wine cellars in Eretz Yisrael will apply to the personal storage rooms of beer in Bavel. Amar Rav Chisda Beit Dagim ein tzorich bedika. The room in which you store fish, you don't have to check. V'atanya tzrichim bedika. We have a brayta which says you do have to check them. Like Kasha, the answer is depends what type of fish. Haba Rav. When speaking about large size fish, which he can anticipate, he can plan ahead, and provide himself adequate supply for the entire meal. In that case, no concern that he went down to get more. Habezutri, the brayta which says that even the fish storerooms require bedika, speaking about small size fish, which you can't really anticipate the proper amount. Rashi says ein lam kva, and therefore it's unpredictable, and perhaps he went down to get some more. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna bei Milchi, the salt storage rooms, bei Kiri, the rooms which have the wax, tzorich bedika, because there as well, perhaps he ran out of his supply and went to get more. Amar Papa beit Sivi, the wood storage rooms of Beit Tamri, the ones that have dates, tzorich bedika, there as well, they need to have bedika because they may have gone there mid-meal to replenish his supply. Okay, so in conclusion, bedikas chametz is required only in a makim shemachnisim chametz. What about holes? Depends. The ones up above, down below, don't require bedika. The ones in the middle, which are accessible, require bedika. Regarding storerooms, the ones that store wine, oil, or large fish don't require bedikas chametz. What about wine or beer which provide a person's personal meal supply? Or a storeroom housing small-sized fish, which you can't necessarily anticipate how much he's going to need during the meal. Or the salt room that has wax, wood, or dates. In all those cases, bedikas chametz is required. When it comes to a bed, if it is gavaya, if it's lifted off the ground, there's some storage area beneath it, then bedika is required. If it's down below, close to the ground, then bedika is not required. Continues the Gemara, Tana, we learned in the Bryce, Ein machayven oisei lahachnis yodai. The Chacham do not require a person to insert his hand l'chayrin l'stokin livdaik, to check in the nooks and the crannies and the holes, v'pnei asakana, on account of danger. My sakana, what danger is inherent in these holes? Inema, are we going to say v'pnei sakanas akrav, we're concerned about a scorpion? So initially, when he used this hole, apparently we're speaking about a hole which he uses, in which case is a concern about the presence of chametz. So if he's using it, how to use it? There's a danger of the scorpion present. Apparently we're speaking about the nafal. This structure collapsed, fell apart. We have a heap of rubble. So initially it was a proper storage area. Now it became a heap of rubble. And we're concerned about the presence of scorpions, which are found inside heaps of rubble. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, why is a bdika required altogether? About Tanam, we learned in the Mishnah. When chametz is buried, we regard it as though it doesn't exist, it's inaccessible, and as though you disposed of it. Chametz shenafal of mapoilus. If it's not poilus, a structure, this heap of rubble is found on chametz, it's as though it's gone. You don't need to be concerned with it whatsoever. So, in this case, this hole has now collapsed. We have merely a heap of rubble. Why would you be concerned with any chametz present there? That mission is speaking where it's deep. Under that heap, we have 3 tefachim of stones above it, in which case it's accessible even for a dog who can't really smell the chametz and he can't locate that chametz, in which case it's considered to be inaccessible as though it's non-existent. In our case, however, it's closer to home. It's closer to the surface, where a dog can discover it, and therefore it's not considered to be inaccessible and disposed of. And therefore a bedika would be required, if not for the fact that there's a concern of sakana of these scorpions. Says the Gemara, why would you be concerned about scorpions when you're doing a mitzvah of b'dikas chametz? Those that are pursuing, that are involved in a mitzvah, are protected from harm. Amar Bashi, yeah, the b'dika itself is not a concern, but there's a concern in Shema. Perhaps this fellow will lose a needle, a pin. So you already lost something inside this hole. And then when he proceeds to do b'dikas chametz, he'll have that in mind as well. While he's checking for chametz, he'll also look around to see if that pin is around. So since he has kavanah for his own personal benefit, own personal te'elis, he's not considered a shliach mitzvah, he's not protected from harm. Okay, God will love mitzvah, but even in this case, it's not considered to be a full and proper mitzvah. Does it really take away? We learned in Brisa that even if a person has personal benefit from a mitzvah, it's still considered an act of mitzvah. Tanya. A person pledges his coin for tzedakah. He says, look, I'm doing this mitzvah with a kavanah, with the intent that it provides a schus for my son. My son should live. Or he says that I'm doing this so that I should have a portion to El Haba. Harezet Tzadik Gomer. He's considered to be a Tzadik Gomer. Meaning that it's still considered a proper mitzvah. So likewise, Rabbi Yehuda Chametz, even if he's looking around for his needle as well, it doesn't detract, it's still considered a proper mitzvah, and he's protected from harm. It says in Madilma Basa the Badak, Osi L'Yuni Basra. Sure, if during B'dikas Chametz he's also looking around for his item, he's still called a Shliach Mitzvah. But perhaps what's going to happen is that when he's done B'dikas Chametz, then he'll initiate his search for his pin. At that point, he's already done the mitzvah. He's no longer protected by that mitzvah. Let's see Rashi up on top. Harezet Tzadik Gomer, a person does tzedakah with some stipulation, he's called it tzad gomer. Says Rashi, tzad gomer b'davazeh, meaning this is a fully righteous act. It's a full mitzvah. We don't say it's shlei l'shma. It's for ulterior motive. This fellow is fulfilling the mitzvah Hashem. So his primary intent is the mitzvah. In addition to the mitzvah, he says, look, may as well have some side benefit as well. So he can acquire a portion. So he doesn't realize that the mitzvah itself is going to be the schar that he's going to experience. As Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, schar mitzvah mitzvah, he doesn't have that recognition. Therefore, he stipulates, look, I'm doing this mitzvah so that I should get olam haba as a side benefit. That's all okay, because the mitzvah is still being done for the sake of mitzvah. Or so that his children should live. So, if it's during the act of mitzvah, certainly he's protected. The concern is perhaps when he's done the mitzvah, he'll proceed to look for his item. At that point, he's no longer protected. So on account of that concern, Chacham exempted this fellow from doing b'dikas chametz in this type of situation. He says, you know what the Brisa means? That a person doesn't have to check the hole in the wall due to the danger involved. What danger are we speaking about? Mishum sakanas hanacham. Danger due to the guy who might harm him. We're speaking that there's a hole in a wall separating the Yisrael's home from the guy, and the Brisa is telling him that he doesn't have to check that wall because it might result in the guy harming him. Uplimahi, following the sheet of Plimai. Sanya, Chor sheben Yehudi larmoy. There's a hole between the Yehudi and the guy. Boidik ad mokam sheyadem hagas. So Yisrael needs to check merely up until where he can reach. Hashar mevatel b'liboy. And regarding the rest of the hole, he does bittul to address any chametz that might be present in that hole. That's the Tanakama. Plimai Omar, no. Kol atzmai einei boidik. This entire hole he will not check. V'pnei sakana, due to the danger which is present. My sakana, what danger is inherent in this situation? We're concerned that perhaps the guy will see this, he's checking the hole, he'll begin suspecting perhaps he's setting him up with some kshafim there, and he might harm him as a result. If that's a concern, so how does Yisrael ever use this hole in the wall? It says in Hasam, ki ishtamish yimama. Generally, when he uses this hole, it's daytime, it's light. There's nothing out of the ordinary here. The guy doesn't suspect anything's being done abnormally. In contrast to over here, where it's nighttime, a shrag is using a candle, a shragu, and when the guy sees this, he begins to suspect foul play, and therefore he might go ahead and harm the Yisrael. That's why the Yisrael is exempt from checking this hole. Says the Gemara, but what's the concern? The Rebbe tells us, when one is involved in a mitzvah, he's protected from harm. When there's a high probability of harm, of danger, then it's different. One is not meant to submit himself, place himself in a dangerous situation. So even mitzvah doesn't protect the person. You know, the Chayvus Avava says that a person may not place himself in danger, and if he does so, the einish, the punishment, perhaps is the very danger that may affect him. So a person is not meant to place himself in danger in sakana, in a situation where it's shchiach hazeka. Harm is commonly found, such as in this case with the goy, and therefore we exempt the Yisrael from b'dikas chametz. Shanara, where do we find this concept? Vayomer Shmuel. So this is when Hashem instructed Shmuel to go and anoint David as a king. Shmuel responded, Eich Eilech, how can I go? V'shama Shol Varagani. Shol will hear, and he'll kill me. Vayomer Hashem responded, Eglas Bakar Tikach V'yadech. You know, I'll take a calf with you, and you'll tell them you're going to bring a carbon. So you'll use that as an alibi. So in any case, we see that even though Shmuel was involved in a mitzvah, nevertheless he feared the consequence of confronting Shaul. Apparently, when it's sheikh hazeka, when it's a situation of high probability, Even a mitzvah won't protect a person. And likewise, in our case, the Yisrael is exempt from doing b'dikas chametz due to the danger inherent. If the guy goes ahead and notices it and grows suspicious and may harm the Yisrael. So the Brisa tells us a person doesn't have to be boidik tichar. We have two explanations. The reason is because of sakana. What type of sakana? Either we're speaking about when the structure collapsed, and there's a concern about the presence of scorpions. What about the fact that he's doing a mitzvah? Why isn't he protected? The Gemara says because perhaps he lost something in that hole, and when he's done b'dikas chametz, he'll continue looking for that item, and at that point he's not protected from the mitzvah. The second shot we're speaking about a hole which is in a wall separating the yid from the guy. We're concerned about the guy growing suspicious, and this may result in hezek, and therefore we exempt the Yisrael from b'dikas chametz. So on the topic of shtucha mitzvah, says the Gemara, Bo minei Rav. They asked the following question of Rav: Hani b'nei bei Rav. What about these talmidim that learn by the Rebbe, learn in the yeshiva? The dairi b'bag, so they reside out in the villages, and they need to come to the Beis Medrash. Ma'ula meisi kadma b'chashecha. Should they come early in the morning when it's still dark before Lis HaShachar? V'chashecha. And should they come after nightfall? Or should we be concerned about vimazikim, which are prevalent during nighttime, which may harm them? So should they come kadma v'chashecha lebei Rav? Omerlu, so Rav responded, certainly yes. Nicer, they should come. There's no concern. Olai, val tzavari. Their harm that befalls them, is on me and my neck, meaning I'm taking full responsibility. I assure you that the mitzvah will protect them, the mitzvah Talmud Torah will protect them from all harm. Nasal mai. However, can they go back home? This was the next question asked of Rav. Can they go back home at night? Meaning, are they protected even on their return trip home? He says, I don't know. Continues the Gemara. Itmar, Amar Belazar, yes, they're protected on both accounts. Shlucha mitzvah einon nizoikin. A shluch mitzvah is protected from harm. They're protected, they won't incur any harm, not on the way to the mitzvah, nor on the way back. Apparently, the return trip is also considered part and parcel of the mitzvah effort, which merits protection. Kiman, in accordance with which shita are we following? Ki haitana, like the following Tanya. The Sanya Ise ben Yehuda Omer. Klape she'amra Torah. The fact that the Torah promised that when the Yisrael oile l'regel, you're not meant to be concerned about your property that you're leaving back home. You can be assured that nobody will desire your land to overtake your property. We learn from here, Melamed shetehei paroscha roya ba'afar. So not only is your actual property going to be protected, but even your livestock, your cow, who will graze in the afar, in the swamp, vein chayo mazikasa, no animal will harm it. Likewise, your chicken will be pecking in the trash, vein chuldam hazikasa, and a rat won't come harm it. Tesis learns that the pasuk says, "V'loyachmid ish es artzecha," indicating that not only your actual eretz, the property, will remain safe, but also es artzecha, something which is tofel la artzecha, something which is subordinate, something which lives off the land. Your animals as well will be protected. Now we can draw a kavachomer from it. Uma elu shadarkan lizoik. Since the Torah speaks about even these things, these animals, which are accustomed to experiencing harm, Rashi says, they don't have a mazel to protect them. Still in all, they won't experience any harm. B'nei Adam, certainly people, which are not accustomed to experiencing harm, they have a mazel that protects them. Certainly, of course, they will be protected from all harm because they're involved in a mitzvah. Which mitzvah? Alila regel. Ainli ela b'halicha. So from here we only learn, perhaps on the way to the mitzvah, while you're involved in doing the mitzvah, you're protected. Bechazor menayin. What about on your return trip? How do we know that the person will be protected and his property will be protected at that point as well? Talmud Loimar, the pasuk says, you'll turn in the morning after Yom Tov, and you'll go back to your abode. Melamed, this teaches us shetelech v'timtza alecha b'shalom. You'll go back home, you'll find everything in order, your dwelling, your oil will be in a state of peace. So apparently, even at this point, during your return trip, you're considered to be still involved in the mitzvah effort and protected on account of the schus of the mitzvah. So this is the concept that we mentioned earlier. Shlucha mitzvah in an nizoikin, loy b'halichasan, v'loy b'chazirasan. Says the Gemara, v'chi ma'achar. Now once you tell me that afilu b'chazira, that even on your return trip you're protected, ba'alicha lamli. So once the Torah tells us that, why does the Torah have to say that ba'alicha, on the way to Yerushalayim, to the mitzvah, you're going to be protected? Once we know that you're protected on the way home, certainly on the way there. So why does the pasuk have to say that nobody will desire your land? And the pasuk continues about when you go up to the Beis Hamikdash. Why is that necessary? Isn't it implied from the fact that you're protected on the way home? Likad Rav Ami. The pasuk here is informing us a din. As Rav Ami told us, only a property owner has the obligation to be oil l'regel. However, a person who has no karka does not need to be oil l'regel. And we learn this from v'lo yachmid yishasar tsecha. That indicates that only a person who has eretz, who's a land owner, needs to be oil l'regel. Explains the Marsha, because the point of being oil l'regel is we have the farmer sitting out in the field, living off the ground, producing his crops. At 3 points during the year, you're meant to go up to Yerushalayim, to Beis Hamikdash, to connect to Hashem, to tribute everything to Hashem. It's not your doing, it's Hashem's production. It's coming from Hashem, it's meant to be used for Hashem, so it's meant to put everything into perspective, to maintain proper focus. So Pesach is Zman HaAviv, when everything begins to grow. Shavuos is Zman HaKatzah, when you reap the crop. Sukkot is Zman HaAsav, when you gather everything into your home. So during these 3 distinct stages of production, it's appropriate to go up to Beis Hamikdash, to connect, to rejuvenate, to focus on what's important and what's real. Take everything that you own, all your properties, and connect it to its source, to Hashem. So one who has karka is oil l'regel. So on the topic of alil l'regel, says the Gemara, Amar Rav Abin bar Rav Ada Amar Yitzchak. Why is it that we don't find peros ginoisa, these sweet, luscious, delicious fruits, found by the Yam Kineres? Why were they not found in Yerushalayim as well? In order to prevent a situation where the oil regel will say, look, if we only went out for this purpose, we only oil regel to Yerushalayim in order to benefit from the sweet pears genoisa, there'll be enough reason to go up. This will result in going up with an ulterior motive. Lose focus. Therefore, we don't want any attractions other than spiritual attraction. Similarly, Amar Abdel Stoy Rav Yanai. Why were there no hot springs, natural hot springs in Yerushalayim as there are in Tveria? For the same reason. So people coming up shouldn't say, had we only gone up to Yerushalayim to enjoy the Chamit Tveria, to bathe in the hot springs, there'll be enough reason to come up. Turns out that they're going to be coming up not for the true reason, true purpose of spiritual rejuvenation. Therefore, we don't want any diversions, any attractions other than pure spiritual attraction, and therefore Hashem did not place these things in Yerushalayim. Continues the Gemara. So the Mishnah spoke about a makam she'emachitz by chametz, which doesn't require b'dikas chametz, and the Mishnah proceeded with a question mark. Why, if that's the case, why did we say that when it comes to a wine cellar, you must check 2 rows? Says the Gemara, Martev, man dechar shemei. Whoever discussed a wine cellar. How do you know that a wine cellar is potter from B'dikas Chametz? That it leads you to the next question, that why do you have to check a wine cellar? Whoever said a wine cellar is potter. This is what the Mishnah means to say. The Mishnah says, Kol makom she'machnitzim by chametz and tzarich b'dika. So the Mishnah adds the words kol. Kol makom she'machnitzim by chametz. And we learned this earlier. What's the word kol coming to include? V'oitzris yain v'oitzris shemen. Nami ein tzarich b'dika. The wine cellars, the oil storage rooms, as well, don't require b'dika. If that's the case, so the word koil was coming to include even these scenarios, wine cellars. If that's the case, ubeme amru, shtei shuris b'martiv. If that's the case, so why does the Chacham require checking 2 rows in the wine cellar? I just thought a wine cellar is pata. The answer is, mokem shemachnisim b'chametz. Ubemestapik. We're speaking about a wine cellar, which supplies a person's personal mealtime supply of wine. Mistapik. In which case, there's a concern that perhaps he'll run in there mid-meal to replenish his supply and leave his bread there. And therefore, b'dika is required. So, what type of b'dika is required? According to Beis Shammai, you meant to check between the barrels of the first 2 rows of that wine cellar. Now, which 2 rows are we speaking about? We have machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda, shtei shuros she'amru. These 2 shuros that we're speaking about, min ha'aretz v'ashmei kara. We're referring to rows which extend from floor to ceiling. So you enter the wine cellar, which has many layers going from floor to ceiling. So you check the first layer facing the entrance from floor to ceiling, and the one right behind it. So in total you check between barrels amongst those first 2 layers, the outermost, floor to ceiling, and the one behind the floor to ceiling. The concern is, of course, that the shamus left some bread there. We'll assume that he left his bread amongst those barrels which are exposed to the entranceway. We're going to see soon, more specifically, the barrels which are on top, where we assume he went to get his wine from the upper barrels. So according to Rabbi's approach, Beis Shammai hold, the outermost rows must be checked. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, he says a bit differently. You know where these 2 rows are? Shura achas k'minagam. It's actually like 1 row shaped like a gam. A gam is a Greek letter, like an L. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, you meant to check the outermost layer, like Rabbi Yehuda. So you enter the cellar, and you check that first layer which you face, from floor to ceiling, but not the one behind it. That one, and then the uppermost layer of the entire wine cellar. The layer which faces the ceiling. So it's like an L. Across the top, down the front. So you check the entire perimeter of the wine cellar. The one that's fully exposed to the entranceway, and also the top one, where there's a concern perhaps bread was deposited there. Tanika was said Rabbi Yehuda, Tanika was Rabbi Yehuda. We have a brayso which supports both approaches. Tanika was Rabbi Yehuda. We have a brayso which supports Rabbi Yehuda's approach. What does that mean? You check 2 rows in front of in the front of the wine cellar. These 2 rows are the 2 outermost rows exposed to the entrance of the martev, going from floor to ceiling. So this was Rabbi Yehuda's approach. Tanya kavas Rabbi Yehuda. We have a brayso which supports Rabbi Yehuda. Shtei shuros al pnei kol martev means like this. Chitzoina reis Pesach. You check the outermost layer, which faces the entranceway. Vel yoina reis hakoyra, and the uppermost layer, which faces the beams. Shilifnim heimeno or shilimata heimeno. The one behind it or beneath it. So you enter the cellar. The first layer, the first row, from floor to ceiling, you check. But shilifnim heimeno, behind it, you don't check. you check the uppermost layer, but shalamata himenu, the one beneath it, ain't tzarech b'dika, no dika is required. So conclusion, according to Shami, check 2 rows. Rita says, it's the 2 outermost rows of the wine cellar from floor to ceiling, Rabbi Yehuda, the outermost and the uppermost. According to them, you don't need to check to such great extent entire layers, just a couple of rows suffice. Which ones? The 2 outermost, which are the upper ones. A bit confusing. What does this mean? What you mean is the uppermost row and the one beneath it. So you enter the wine cellar. You're faced with a layer of barrels from floor to ceiling. You don't have to check the entire layer. Just the uppermost row going all across. And the one right beneath it, which is 2 away from the ceiling. So the first one and the second one. That's all. That's according to Rav. El Yoina Ushalamate Imen. Ushmol Amar El Yoina Ushalafnim Imen. Shmuel says the uppermost corner, yeah, that whole row. But instead of going down, you go further into the cellar. So the uppermost line and the one right behind it. So again, you enter the wine cellar. You have rows and rows of barrels. According to Basil, check merely two lines. Not entire layers, just 2 rows. Rav says, it's the uppermost row in that front layer, and the one right beneath it. According to Shmuel, the uppermost, and the one behind it. Says, well, my time in the Rav. What's Rav's basis for his approach? Dayik chitzainis, because the Mishnah says, shtei shuras chitzainis, the 2 outermost rows. Apparently, you're speaking about the rows which are present in the outermost layer, facing the entranceway, not behind it, not towards the interior side of the wine cellar. So here's medayik from the word chitzainis. V'al yonis ketanim. Doesn't the Mishnah say chitzainis shein ha'al yonis, uppermost? According to Rav, yeah, the first one is near the ceiling, but the second one is beneath it, removed from the ceiling. That's not al yonis. They're not both uppermost. L'muti tatoi the tatyasa. When the Mishnah says al yonis, it's simply coming to rule out the ones beneath the 2 rows. Tatoi, the ones beneath the tatyasa of the lower one, of the second one, the one that's removed from the 2 away from the ceiling. So again, according to Rav, you check the upper line and the one right beneath it, but not beneath that. Shmuel Amar El Yoina Shalafnim Imenu. Shmuel says, you enter the wine cellar, you face with that layer of barrels, that wall of barrels. You check the uppermost row going from wall to wall, and the one right behind it. Why? My timer. What's his reason? Daikal Yonis, because the Mishnah says clearly, they're meant to be the uppermost. Apparently, it's not the one that's removed from the ceiling. It has to be facing the ceiling. What about the fact that the Mishnah says chitzonis, which indicates outermost? According to Shmuel, the first one is situated on top of the outermost row, but the one behind it is the interior. It's not chitzonis. The Mishnah says chitzonis is coming to exclude the one that's behind the second one from the front. So you check the outer one, the one right behind it. You don't have to check past that. So in summary, Beis Hillel required checking merely along 2 rows, not layers, just 2 rows, 2 lines of barrels. According to Rav, we're speaking about the outermost layer of barrels, the barrels which you're faced with when you walk into the wine cellar. So you come in, and you look up to the ceiling, you check that first row running all across the ceiling, and the one right beneath it. So 2 rows in total. According to Shmuel, the top row and the one behind it, which is removed from the front towards the back. Says the Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, the Rabbi Yehuda taught a brayso in accordance with Rav's approach. However, all the other Tanaim learned their brayso in accordance with Shmuel's approach. Shmuel, indeed, that halacha follows Shmuel's approach, that you check the uppermost row with the one behind it. So again, the concept here is that we're concerned that the shamus perhaps inadvertently left his bread there when he went to replenish his wine supply, and probably he would have left it amongst the barrels which were exposed to the entranceway. Probably he left it somewhere up on top where he's going to find his barrel. You generally take the barrel from on top of the pile rather than from the bottom. So the concern is amongst those barrels which are exposed, which are on top, and that forms the basis of these various shittas. To what extent are we concerned? Where exactly do we apply this concern? Okay, time for a brief review of today's daf. We learned about b'dikas chametz, which is not required in a chatzar, which is a unroofed area. It's exposed to the creatures and the elements. We're certain that the ravens, came by and picked up the chametz, therefore no bedika is required. However, in achsada, which is a covered roofed area, you need to do bedika there, but you can use sunlight, which is found in abundance in that area. Likewise, you have a skylight. So the area which is directly opposite that window is fully illuminated by the Or HaChama, by sunlight, and that is sufficient. However, in other areas, you need to have the Or HaNer in specific. Why is a ner preferred over a torch? Then we'll give us 4 reasons. Number 1, you don't hesitate to take the ner into chayrim staka, into nooks and crannies, as opposed to a torch which can't fit in it. Number 2, the candlelight is not so bright, it doesn't blind you, which allows you to properly see the area in front of the candle and discover the chametz present there. The candle doesn't generate fear, and therefore he'll check properly. And finally, the light of a candle is steady and consistent and provides for an effective bedikas chametz. We learned that only a makam shemachnitzin by chametz requires bedika. What about holes in the wall? So if they're situated up high or down below, in which case accessible, hard to use, we assume there's no chametz there and no bedika is required. If the holes are somewhere in the middle, we have to do bedikas chametz. What about storage rooms? So a wine cellar, standard wine cellar, an oil room, a fish room containing large fish, these don't require bedika. The Gemara tells us when it comes to large fish or oil, a person can anticipate how much he's going to need for the Suda, and therefore there's no concern that he ran out of supply and went to replenish. When it comes to a personal wine cellar or a beer storage area, where he's being mistafik from it, serving his personal mealtime supply, or the storeroom which contains small fish, salt, wax, wood, dates. In all these cases of concern that perhaps he ran out of supply during the meal, and he'll go over there to replenish mid-meal, perhaps he'll leave his bread in these areas. When it comes to a bed, if it's high, it's lifted off the ground, suitable for storage, you have to do bedika underneath it. If it's low down, in that case, it's not suitable for storage, and no bedika is required. The Brisa told us that one is pater from doing b'dikas chametz in a hole where sakana is present. What type of danger are we speaking about? We have 2 approaches. Either we're speaking about a structure which collapsed, in which case there's a concern about the scorpions that may be present there. Now, although a person is meant to be protected from harm while he's involved in a mitzvah, however, the Chacham concerned perhaps after he's completed the b'dikas chametz, he'll continue looking for his lost item. And at that point, he's no longer protected on account of the mitzvah. Therefore, the Chacham exempted him from b'dikas chametz in this case. The second approach was that the concern is due to a goy. We're speaking about a hole present in a wall, separating the Yisrael's dwelling from the goy. And we're concerned that the goy might notice that he's up to something there in the middle of the night with a candle, perhaps he's setting him up for kishuv, and this may result in the goy harming the Yisrael. Now, although generally we say shluchim mitzvah ein nezaikin, but in a case where shchiach zeka, where harm is highly probable, such as in the case where Shmuel, who was going to anoint David and was afraid of Shaul, in that case we don't say shluchim mitzvah ein nezaikin. That's why the Chacham exempted this fellow from doing b'dikas chametz. We learned that shluchim mitzvah ein nezaikin, whether it's on the way to doing a mitzvah or even on the way home. And we learn this from the fact that the Torah promised that a Yisrael who will be Eilu Regel will be protected himself, his belongings from all harm and damage, whether it's when he's going to be Eilu Regel, when he's involved in Eilu Regel, or even as a return trip home. So we see that on both accounts, whether on the way there or on the way back, the person has the protection of the mitzvah. We concluded with the wine cellar, which supplies his personal mealtime needs, in which case is concerned, perhaps he ran into with his bread, B'dika is required. According to Shammai, you check 2 layers. We have 2 approaches. What that means? According to Basil, you check merely 2 rows. And according to Shmuel, it means the outer upper corner and the row behind it. And then Gemara concludes, V'ilchasa kavasei de Shmuel.